In Sweden, 1 of 3 people will be diagnosed with cancer during their lifetime. That means 60,000 people every year in Sweden alone. Cancer affects all of us, either directly or indirectly. Medical advances and new treatments provide new opportunities to cure and improve survival. That is why the care of cancer patients and their loved ones becomes exceedingly important, and this is where I and others come in. My name is Ingela F. Lissbrant, and I work as a clinical oncologist at the Department of Oncology in Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden. I am a total prostate cancer nerd. But even if you're not working with prostate cancer, everything that I describe today can be applied also to other tumor types, as well as other chronic diseases. I work 24/7 since almost 25 years back with men with prostate cancer and their close ones. And I love my job. But 5 years ago, I became increasingly frustrated for 3 reasons. First, I felt that the care we delivered in my clinic was extremely disease-oriented. And I don't treat prostate cancer, I treat men with prostate cancer. And when they come into my clinic, I need to ask not only what's the matter with you, but also what matters to you. Because everybody who works in oncology knows that there is not only 1 or 2 treatment recommendations that we can give. The quality of life and the priority of the patient matters when the patient is going to make an informed decision about his or her care. My second frustration was that we are spending millions of dollars on innovation that hopefully will change our way of thinking. But we spend hardly any money at all on how to implement these innovations, i.e. that will change our way of acting. And we take for granted that just because we have a new innovation, the clinics will pick it up. And everybody who works in oncology knows that it takes years for new innovations to reach the patient. My third frustration was that we have a lack of quality control in cancer care. I can easily get the number of visits in my clinic in a week. I can get numbers of the number of radical prostatectomies or the number of radiation therapies that we perform each year. But I have no information on treatment response, side effects, and the patient's description of their quality of life. And if we are going to measure the quality of care for cancer patients, we need to take all these variables into account. And then the question is there a solution to this frustration and to these problems? And of course there are, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. Before I present the solution to you, you need a little bit more background about the Swedish healthcare system. In Sweden, we have 10 million inhabitants, and we have a general tax-funded healthcare insurance since many years back. But it's important to understand that we have no national health service. We have 21 counties that provide health care to the citizens. And they are the ones who are responsible for the financing for cancer care and other care. About 10 years ago, our government decided that we should have a national cancer strategy. And that was for many reasons. And one of the big reasons was to achieve equal cancer care in Sweden. And then one established a confederation of 6 regional cancer centers. And they have many important missions. 2 of the most important responsibilities are the national clinical guidelines and also the national quality registers. And the frustrations that I described to you were, of course, not only mine. They are common among people working in cancer in Sweden. And what we did a few years ago was to sit down and try to find a solution to the problems that prohibit equal care in Sweden. And this is what the conclusions we came to. We established a vision. And our vision was that we wanted to find a way where we could structure and visualize all essential patient data from cancer care, and a key point, in one system that was shared by all 21 healthcare regions. And we also wanted to make these structured data available to patients, to healthcare professionals, to healthcare providers, and for research and development. And in the future, we wanted this to be a platform that can support precision medicine and facilitate registry-based clinical trials. And what we ended up with is something we call the Individual Patient Overview, IPO. That now has been developed as a national tool to be used in cancer care. It facilitates the clinical situation both for the patient and for us as caregivers. And the important thing, it is created by all stakeholders from the beginning. It's the patients, caregivers, head of departments, researchers, and authorities involved in cancer care. And the patient overview is to be used together with the patient's medical record as a clinical decision support system where we collect and visualize data about a patient's medical and treatment history. Both caregivers and patients contribute data. So it's a graphical display of systematically gathered data. So what happens when a patient is diagnosed with cancer is that we start an IPO for that particular patient. And when treatments are started and new test results are available, the information is entered into the IPO. Their patient can also contribute data. And they do that. I'll show you a picture here, a slide. They fill in a digital survey prior to the visit, where we have gathered the 17 most common symptoms for this group of patients. And the beauty of this is that the patient, they prepare this before they come to my office. And when I sit in my office, this is automatically transferred to the patient overview, and it is displayed on my screen. And as you see here, this circle have 17 different pieces in different colors. And the pieces that are red, that means that that is a severe problem for the patient. Orange, moderate, and green, no problems. And what I can do during my consultation is to focus on the symptoms that really bothers the patient. And this has been so important for me because now I can focus on the symptoms that really matters and try to help out as much as I can during my consultation. And the circle in the middle is a measure of the quality of life on a scale from 0 to 7. So I want to go into a little bit more detail about what the patient overview means to different stakeholders. As I told you, our patients have been involved from the beginning, and they really describe that for the first time in their life, during their cancer journey, they feel that they have a shared understanding with a doctor. Because since both professionals and patients present data, it's much, much easier to discuss around the graphical display instead of all the text in the medical journals. So for the patients, this is really important. So the second stakeholders, that's us caregivers. For me, it has really been before and after the patient overview. Nowadays, I focus on what I'm expected to do as a doctor, because I don't need to spend a lot of time trying to find information in the medical record. That's many years back. I'm up to date on the patient's situation in front of me in just a few seconds. So it saves time, and instead of talking around the medical record, me and the patient will sit and discuss his or her situation around the patient overview instead. And we both know that we have both contributed data to this picture. But to really show and get numbers and figures on the amount of time that we save by using the patient overview, a brilliant colleague of mine, Charlotte Alvebratt, performed a randomized trial. And what we did was to take oncologists, urologists, and nurses in 3 hospitals in Sweden. And they were timed when they were filling out questionnaires about patients with prostate cancer. We had 15 questions, important information that we need to make wise decisions about the patient's treatment. And then we compared the time it took to find the information in the patient overview compared to the 2 most common electronic healthcare systems in Sweden, Melior and Cosmic. And we measured both time and the number of errors, and we also measured usability of the system. And what we found, as you see here, this is the time it took to find the information in the patient overview, and these are the medical records. And I'm not going to go into much detail, but as you see, it took 1/3 of the time to find the information in the patient overview compared to the medical record system. And it was less error in the patient overview compared to the medical records. And the caregivers also rated the usability as excellent, and that's not common for caregivers to rate a new IT system that high. So it saves time. And what you also can use the patient overview for is a decision support at multidisciplinary team conferences. As you all know, cancer treatment today, it's not a one-man show. We're many different specialties that are involved in making wise decisions for our patients. And that means that we have different parts of the medical record system where we need to find the text, to find the information about the patient that we discuss at the MDT. With the patient overview, we all have the same information, and all different specialties contribute to the same overview. And for the first time, our head of departments know what we are doing. So what the patient overview can do in no time is to provide metrics on department performance. Do we follow guidelines? How is our performance over time? The system can also be used for benchmarking. How is our performance compared to other healthcare providers regionally and nationally? And one can also use this for feasibility prior to clinical studies, because it's very easy to find out how many patients who may be relevant for the study that you want to include patients in. And that's also new. Today we're guessing. And for another important goal for the head of departments too is to use the patient overview for cost estimates and budget. When we have new expensive drugs, it's very important for both policymakers and head of departments to be able to make estimates on how this will affect the economy in the clinic. And the last stakeholders that are also very important as cancer care is developing so fast, it is our policymakers, but also the pharmaceutical industry. And for the first time, we can present treatment patterns of how we treat our patients today. What I'm showing you here is a Sankey diagram of patients with castration-resistant prostate cancer. And there you can see the types of treatment that we usually give first line, second line, third line, fourth line, and fifth line. And you can also see how common it is to give many lines of treatment. And this is really unique data. And I think if you work in the pharmaceutical industry, this is really information that you try to look for, but it's extremely difficult to find. And everybody who's working in the pharmaceutical industry also know that the post-authorization safety studies that you need to perform, it's extremely difficult to get data to perform these studies in a smooth and easy way. Here you have the solution. And the next important goal is research and development, because the information in the patient overview can be transferred automatically to the national quality registers, and therefore it can be used for research. We can do big observational studies where we can study treatment duration, treatment patterns, reasons for drug stop, etc., survival, etc., etc. And also the clinical data found in the patient overviews, if we can connect that to biobanking, that's very, very unique to have that on a population base. And in the future, and we're doing that right now, we are actually starting several registry-based randomized trials within the IP, within the patient overview. And what we really try to do is that we want clinical studies to reach outside the university hospitals. And since IPU can be used in any hospital, if we can find a way to start registry-based randomized trials in the patient overview, every hospital in Sweden can actually include patients. So, where are we today? The patient overview is absolutely not only for prostate cancer. Today, we have 8 patient overviews for 8 cancer diagnoses. We have for breast, lung, brain tumors, ovarian tumors, for malignant melanoma, myeloma, kidney, and for prostate. And what we have done through this work is to establish a structured model for additional diagnosis, and several are on their way. So it has been important for us to develop a generic model so it's easy for new diagnoses to connect and build their overview. And what has been the key to success with this project? And I really believe that the fact that all stakeholders have been involved from the start is so important, because building a patient overview is an iterative process where you need all stakeholders to comment, and then you adjust along the way. And all these cancer diagnoses that have, the 8 diagnoses that have patient overviews today, they have national working groups of clinician and patient representatives, and these groups, these different groups, they develop the requirements and the specification for that particular diagnosis. And then we perform acceptance testing. We write a user manual so everybody understands what we mean. And then we have also coordinators that implement the patient overview in the hospital. Because again, a digital innovation is no different from a new medication. The easy part is the innovation. The difficult part is the implementation. So where are we heading next? The implementation process, as I said, is very difficult. So we are spending a lot of time to work on that. Today, 48,000 Swedish cancer patients have been included in the patient overviews. That's a lot. And we're preparing for adding additional diagnoses. And also other cancer diagnoses, but also for other chronic diseases. Because as you easily can imagine, for diabetes, heart failure patients, etc., this is really, I believe, an ideal way of presenting data. And then also we are working, we want to combine the data in the patient overview with genetic analysis that's getting more and more common for many of our cancer patients. So I just need to tell you that we're very proud and happy. We have a fantastic project leader called Maria Sörby. And she has done an amazing work during all these years. And 6 months ago, we were one of 40 projects that were nominated to the Sveapriset, and now we're one of 3 finalists. So in March we will know if we will be chosen as the best health innovation in Swedish healthcare. We'll see. But just the fact that we're one of 3 finalists is enough for us. So the future, the last thing. Today I'm not frustrated anymore. And for me, it is so nice because the patients, my patients that come to my clinic today, they're not passive objects, they're active subjects. And my role as a clinical doctor has changed. I've never been a god, I have never wanted to be a god, but you know how many patients feel and think about their doctors. Today, I'm more of a guide, and I think that's a very, that's how it should be. Because if we're going to make informed decisions for patients in the best way, we really need to have a shared responsibility, a shared learning, and a shared decision-making. Building bridges, beating cancer. We walk hand in hand.